Alright, so for reverse Helix, you just download files, open up your slicer, start a new project, or it'll just do that automatically, depending. And unzip the file, and in there you should find reverse Helix layout with painted supports. You just click and drag that into your slicer, give it a minute to load, and then everything should be divided by plate with TPU, secondary color, primary color, and orange parts. Obviously, you can mix and match them if you want. This is just how they are laid out in the file network and how they'd be ordered. So on the first plate, we have the TPU parts, both of which need a little bit of support. This first one just on the inner ring, and the other one on the inside of the barrel brace, or barrel support area, just in these 4 spots. It's not too hard to take out those supports with bare pliers, and I'm not sure how well this part prints without them, but you can try it. You can try that if you'd like. I would highly recommend, if we're printing the head seal, making sure that your printer is somewhat tuned for that your profile is somewhat tuned for printing TPU, as this part is going to change the performance of your blaster a fair amount. Then coming over to the secondary color, the main things to call out are that for both of the catch arms, as well as for the catch itself, I'd recommend adding extra wall loops. You can add extra infill too, but these are very small parts. The wall loops fill it in rather quickly. And when it comes to supports, the pump grip, spring brace, stock pad, front and back of the plunger head, those all don't need supports. The pusher doesn't need them either, and the catch arms don't. The catch itself does, because of the 2 little grooves on it. And then when it comes to the magwell, that one's just supports on this area here, but otherwise is fine running without them. And the grip wants a whole lot of supports, mostly on the bottom faces here, and then also on the inside of the trigger guard, and in these areas on the side for the 2 sidebars in the blaster. Then coming over here to the primary colors, the end piece here doesn't need any supports, neither does the seal mount or the grip insert, but the front and middle pieces, both front and middle sections, both want a bit of support. The front section wants it in these 2 spots for the windy rail, as well as in these spots at the back for the catch arms. And then the middle spot, again, wants some for the area with the windy rail and for the catch arms. Also in the back here, I like to add a bit of support at the top. Depending on how good your printer is at bridging, you might not need it, but it's still a good piece of mind pen. Then coming over here to the orange parts, main things to call out are that both sections of rail need support on the bottom of them. They're not very well optimized for printing, but do look rather nice. The mag release also needs a bit of support on these front areas. The muzzle, again, support on the one rail and in the spot for the bolt. The trigger wants a bit of support on these overhanging faces. The mag release and trigger lever don't need any supports, neither do the barrel mounts or collets as they're labeled. Now when it comes to the collets, for reverse Helix currently, it only uses 15mm barrels, and you're going to want to print out 2 collets, 1 single ring, and the other can be single or double ring. So what that would look like at the moment is could get rid of the 2 16mm and print out 1 of each 15. You could also print out 2 single ring collets. And what that really changes is how much barrel retention force there is. I found 2 single rings will do just fine, but if you're having issues of the barrel slipping, then adding the double ring in there can solve that issue.
Alrighty. Now for the complicated one, I guess. For this one, I also had a couple of screws that weren't able to come out, or a couple of nuts rather, that I wasn't able to take all the way out. So while I have the full selection over here, I will be putting some of them off to the side when they would be going into the blaster. But with that out of the way, let's get building. First simple thing, we're just going to assemble these two, the barrel mounts, squeeze the O-ring a little bit, put the one side in, into the groove in there, then you can push the other end to get it in, and wiggle it around to put it in. There we go. That's those two things. Next up, we'll do the plunger head. It's going to be these parts. Bushing 2 of the M3 nuts. As you can see, they're already in there. In yours, they should be a relatively easy push fit. 2 of the second longest screw. And then we need the catch and the other 2 O-rings. One other note for this is, well, in mine, I'm going to put the bushing in from the front. For yours, it would be going into this piece, and then the seal would be sandwiching over the top of it. Whereas for mine, the seal will be going on it, and then this will be going through it. So, also these things are covered in lube because the blaster was assembled a couple minutes ago. But, first thing we're going to do here, in yours, it would be putting the bushing through here, so that we can put the catch on. For mine, it's going to be putting the bushing through here, and then through that other part. So, there we go. So for yours, this would just be the bushing going on the front. For mine, it's both the bushing and the front seal. But, it goes together. Something like that. And then on the catch, put one O-ring on the front, one O-ring on the back. And then kind of work it over so that the O-ring, both O-rings loop over the bushing and the catch. I'll put the back part on before the O-ring comes off. Wipe the grease off my hands again. Pick up our little sandwich. Line it up so we can put the screws through. There we go. There, you just use the screwdriver to move the hole over a little bit and get more lined up. Again, 2 of the second longest screws. We're just going to send this all the way through as far as they'll go. Like so. And so there's the plunger head assembled. Again, so much grease. Next thing we'll assemble is the stock butt. So for this part, I'll put one nut in there and one in there. Again, those ones are stuck, so, or mine are stuck in there already, so we'll leave them. I will need that part, the stock pad, as well as both of our mag release parts. So, first for the mag release, I'll be taking one springs. That's for every other blaster. By taking the mag release itself, it'll go in the little valley there. And we'll take one of the middle length of bolt, and it will be getting threaded through. And on the other side, we'll have a knot in there. Look, I'd recommend using both hands to make sure the mag release gets started on the bolt, and then worrying about holding the nut in place on the other side. So I'll just go like that. And we can just send this home. For yours, this will probably be another one of these shorter bolts, but for mine, being a slightly outdated version, it's a little bit longer. And then the spring will just go in there, and then the forward mag release will go in like that. I got take another nut and put it in the back there, and then this is just going to slide in there. If this is taking a bit of force, then make sure to trim off any elephant's footing that you have on these two edges, and also see how squared the inner corners are on this part, as both of those can cause some issues. But there we go, and that should end up just about flush with the back. See if it's not quite flush, the stock pad and the bolts through it will take care of that. So now I'll take the other three bolts of that same length, put one in each of these spaces. Whoop. Like so. And then they will each tighten on one of those. Well, go into one of those spots and tighten down. Whoop. That can also fall out. It's not too hard to put it back in, so don't worry too much about that. Looks like on mine, one of the nuts has stripped its location, so that one won't be going in. On yours, the tolerances should be such that that won't happen, but mine being an older version, and one that's come apart a couple of times, things like this start to happen. So we got those in. And I'll do a couple of threads on this bottom one, but as we just saw, it's not going to tighten all the way down. Or it might. Oh, both that for now. And if that part falls out, you can just slide it back in like that. And that's all fine and dandy. Next up, we're going to go for the grip. So the grip, the insert, the trigger, and the trigger lever. And one of these short bolts, the longest screw, and then it would be 5 of the nuts. On mine, the fit is on these is such that you want a dot of glue to hold them in. On yours, they should hold in on their own. But that is where these 4 would go. So for the grip insert, flip it over, put the nut right in there, and this will slide up into the grip, flip back over, and then the screw will just go all the way through. Just get tightened all the way down, like so. Now for the trigger, there's a little spot in there where you can put the spring in, and the trigger lever will go on top of that, and the trigger itself will go around and in front of the trigger lever. And through the hole on the side, you want to line up the hole in the trigger lever and the slot in the trigger with it. And this bolt will just go in there. It might thread into some of the plastic, but don't worry about it. It's not going to have force on it in that direction, and also it's going to get held in by the main sidebars of the blaster. So it's not like it's going anywhere. Even if on yours it just pushes right in. But there you go, and it should move pretty smoothly. You probably noticed on the back of my trigger there's a bit that was cut off. On yours you shouldn't need to do that, but if you're finding that it's not releasing consistently, trimming the back of that, or taking a little bit of material off the back of that on the trigger can do a lot for you. Now we have the grip assembled. Next we'll do the spring brace. So for that you need the main body of it, along with the two arms, two of the nuts, and two of our two of the 10mm screws. They are the one that you have a bunch of. So I'm going to do two of those for this. Now for this one, the hook, or the open part in the hook, should be facing towards the solid side as opposed to the open side of the part. And then we'll just push right in. Right like that. I'm going to take one nut for each side. They'll go on the inside, and there's a little spot for them. And then we'll take our screw, put it through the outside, and then tighten it down. And the screw head should end up flush with the outside of the catch arm. So that should be just about flat. And same for the other side. Like so. Last thing we'll pre-assemble, yours probably won't have this one in it, but we'll have another one, which we'll come back to later. But we have the base seal, and then the base seal mount is what this is called now. So grab two more of nuts, two of the grab two of the nuts and two of the 12mm screw, or the one that you have four, or the longer one that you have four of. And the three nuts will just go in each side, like so. And just pushing them in, make sure they're lined up. And then when it comes to the seal, one of these in each side. It's pretty easy to push them through, then tighten one down and tighten the other down. Now, if you're finding you're not able to get the blaster to catch, mainly in not having enough draw length for whatever reason, your parts didn't line up that way, adding a washer or two between these two parts on that screw can solve that issue. Should you encounter it. I haven't encountered it in that way, but if you do. So now you have that together. And now to start on the main blaster. So we're going to start with the front piece. We need the muzzle, the front rail, main piece, and we're going to grab two of these screws, the last short bolt, and then one of the trio of remaining screws. Right? Right. So, one of the nuts will go down in the front, and then the other is going to go towards the back, like so. Then we're going to go ahead and put the muzzle on first. So, just so I have a few less things to hold, I'm going to start this bolt, and then we'll put it on the part and tighten it down. And then that bolt is going to go through that one on the front. And it goes up. I'm doing our best to send that home. And then we'll go a little bit past flush. While we're here, I'm going to take the two brow mounts and screw those in. You might find, if you're having trouble, if the rail gets pushed out repeatedly, one of the ways you can solve that is by printing the dual ring versions. Basically, it means you'd have two O-rings in each of these as opposed to one. There should be enough included in the kit for that, but they also aren't too hard to come by if not. Another thing, if you're encountering that a lot, is to just take a sanding pad and just take a little bit of material off the outside of this to reduce friction with the bushing. It can also just be a problem of not putting lube on the inside of the bushing when assembling it, which we'll get to in a minute. But now we have that part together. So we're going to take our linear rail, flip it over, and put it in the top, right like so. And then you're going to want to line up a hole in the front there. We have the front rail. This part goes to the front of the blaster. And we'll take our screw, put it right in there. Whoop. We'll take our longer remaining screw, put it right in there. And tighten that down. You don't want to tighten it all the way, because as you can see, we'll need to move the rail around a little bit to line up some of these other holes. The other thing we'll do is take the heat set insert, one of the 10mm screws, and put it through the other hole in the rail, and the heat set insert opposite it. And then we can tighten that down. Like so. And then for the last one, we'll take one of our M3 nuts, one of the 12mm screws, one of the 14mm screws, and we can just put that through, tighten it down, and we have our linear rail as secured as it'll get to, as it will be to this part in particular. Like so. And you just want to check over here that this still moves freely back and forth, which mine is doing. So we'll set that down for a second. Then grab the priming block, the spring brace, and our two inner bars. And the way you can tell that they're the inside ones are that, well, there's only one of each of them, as opposed to there being the two outside bars. Mine have a bunch of extra holes in them because these are the same set that's been used. Mostly the same set that's been used for every step in designing this blaster. But you're going to take the short one, and on the end with only one hole is going to go into the priming block. And you want to just look down into it and try to line it up with the hole in the bottom of the priming block. Like so. Grab 2mm screws and tighten it down. like so. We'll take the top bar, slide it in. In this case, you want to slide the end that has a hole a little bit further down the length of the bar. Slide that in. We'll grab one of our 10 millimeters. Yeah, grab one of our 10 millimeters and one of our M3 nuts. That'll go on the inside, this time in the top of the priming block. I'm not sure there's a good way to get a camera angle in there, so do your best. The spot for it is pretty obvious. So I trust you guys will be able to find it. So now we're going to take the spring brace and slide it on the end of the bar. In my case, I'm going to focus more on lining up the two bottom ones, as the other two holes are not as well lined up, just from the nature of how these parts were made compared to how the ones that you get will be made. We're going to take our grub screws, and this is where you need the wicked small Allen key, and also a flat table. And those will just go in the bottom here. You can tighten those down so that they're flush, about flush with the bottom of the bar. If you have thread locker, I would highly recommend putting it on these two screws, as they can, well, as they will loosen over time, and when they do, it will cause some major problems. It looks like some other parts on mine are not quite lining up as well as they should. So we're going to be going with one grub screw, but for yours, both should fit without issue. So now, on the top of this, we'll take two of these, two of our remaining 10mm screws. I think I'll only be able to fit one, as that's how many I had before, but that'll be the front one. You can put a nut in each of these, and then a screw through each of the holes on the top. In my case, it's just going to be through the one, because prototypes be like that. And then, again, that should screw down to be flush with the top face there, like so. So there we go. Now we're going to install it into this piece here. We're going to take our 4 remaining bolts. We're going to go to the priming block in each of the 4 spots. And I'm just going to I'm going to screw those in, push them in, that works too. Just makes it a little bit easier to line up with the linear carriage. A bit easier to line up with the linear carriage. And we'll get one of them to be sticking out a little bit. And just tighten these down as much as they will go. Like so. In my case, because some stuff is off, it won't quite slide most smoothly in this area, but yours should do just fine. Alright. So, okay. So, now for this part, we have plunger tube and some other stuff. So we're going to put one nut in each of those spots. Then we're going to put the plunger head in the plunger tube. Rest of the spring on there for now. Put plunger head in there. And then this will slide on from the back of the blaster. And then you're going to line up that upper priming bar, go through the plunger head. And it should go through pretty smoothly. It can just take a little bit to line it up. But there we go. So that's all slid together. Got our spring in there. And then this part will slide on the end of the bar. You'll need to squeeze it a little bit to get it into the end there. Squeeze the end of it down. And there we go. Now I'm going to take ending rail and then our two longish remaining screws. Put that over top. Now for mine, one of the nuts for these is a bit loose, so we'll see how well it fits. But for yours, that one should be pretty well stuck, and you shouldn't have any issues with it coming loose while you're putting the rest of the blaster together. Whoop. There you go. Alright. Alright. So now we have that together. Now the hard part is we have one hole remaining in there, which is where our pusher is going to get mounted. So for that, what you can do, if you can prime the blaster at this point. So you can work to get that on there. Looks like I won't be able to do that this time, but take your pusher, put an entry nut in the side. That should press fit pretty nicely, like so. You can take a longer remaining screw, push that back, slide the pusher on the end, and then tighten the one screw through. Like so. And there's a little bit of space there if you can't get that screw all the way flush. So now at this point with the blaster, if it's the first time you're assembling it, the catch hasn't been used yet, what I would recommend is doing is real quick putting the stock on there and a foregrip, and putting the barrel in, which will just push in from the front, prime it, bring it back, bring it forward, and then force it to fire using like a pair of pliers or something like that, just hitting the catch pad. And then that just makes sure that when you have it fully assembled, it'll be working right then, as opposed to needing to take it apart to make that happen. So again, that'd be putting this on the back, putting the barrel through the front, putting a foregrip on it, priming it, bracing against your knee or something like that. And then bringing that forward, hitting the catch pad, which will end up in here. And then after that, you can continue assembling it, as we're going to do, to get it fully working and in battle ready condition. So, what we're going to do next, we're going to grab our grip. Again, these four in the top here should press fit pretty nicely. If they don't, putting a dot of glue on them isn't going to hurt anything. And that's going to go put in like that, and slide it back. And then we have two sidebars. Now one end of these has the holes more well, these two holes are slightly closer to one end than the other. So I'm just going to double check I have that correct, which I do. So I just want to make sure that when you put it in, that these three holes are going to line up in these three spots for each of the sidebars. And those should slide in pretty nicely from the rear of the blaster. So you can roll those in and then start sliding them through. And this can take a little bit of force to get through, but shouldn't take too much. If you feel like you're putting a lot of force on it, then I double check that there's no flashing or anything like that. No elephant's footing, no seam lines or anything like that that are in the way. But they should slide in pretty nicely. You may need to flex parts a little bit to get them to go in, but that is relatively normal. Okay, so then we have the four 8mm screws, which are going to go in the four holes above the grip. I believe only 2 or 3 of mine are lined up enough to do, but pretty straightforward. Just make sure they're all lined up. And once you have one in each side, then the other one on that side should go in pretty easily. I just did a little bit of wiggling back and forth to get it into the threading. And there we go. It looks like the front one for me is not going to line up on that side, but our other two should line up just fine. So. And like I said, that other one, I don't think it's going to get it to fit. So before we put the stock and such on, I like to slide the barrel in. It's just a little bit easier to check it's much easier to check that it's in the right depth first. But this should just press fit through the front. And if everything lines up, just go right all the way back. Oop. The main thing when you push this back to look in there is that you don't see any blue from the bushing. The bushings might change color to be black at some point, but just try and get the barrel in so that you see a little bit of venting in the plunger base and not any other changes in texture in there. So just pushing this back in. So that's good. And then you put an M3 nut into those spots. For mine, they aren't staying in, so we'll put it in there. Put M3 nut in each of those spots for the thumb screws for the stock. And then this is coming from the top at a little bit of an angle, like so. Then you should be able to push them together, and that will snap up and over the bars. And you just press the blaster together, and there you go. And it looks like one or both of my thumb screws might have lined up. If you're wondering why thumb screws, well, because if anything happens with the blaster, or it jams, or anything like that, this is the area that you'll need to be able to get to pretty easily. If it's something like getting a dart in the plunger tube, that might take a bit more work to get at, but it'll generally do just fine for any other kinds of jamming or anything like that. Also, if you're working with Dragon Claw mags, the ones that came with the Seagull, I found that those can cause some issues with the top dart being not quite level, which can lead to it misfeeding in this system. Just because I can't have a guide for the top dart like most designs do, because that's where that's where the top priming bar goes. But just prime that back to make it catch, so that we can put in the last two nuts and screws in the front there. They're just going to go in those two slots. Whoop. It's a great spot to use a little screwdriver to nail them into place. And then the screws will just go in through these two holes. Like so. And like so. Now, we're going to press forward. There you saw the barrel move, so I should get two other sides of collets. I also don't have lube on the inside of the bushing, but the dual ring collets, lube on the inside of the bushing, and if that didn't work, then just sanding a little bit of the outside of the barrel down would fix that. But we'll push that back, and then there you go. And like most of my designs, this is dry fire safe, more so than some because this is a TPU part, and the front of the plunger head is also TPU. So, there you go. Again, Dragon Claw mags don't tend to work the best in this design for whatever reason. 18 round curved talons seem to do alright, but just be aware that curved mags can cause an issue. But yeah, I hope your blasters are all doing well, and until next time, happy blasting.